Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Judy Shaw with Shaw Medical Travel Consultants, and today we have the privilege of interviewing again Ms. Sonia Wynter, who is a psychologist in Jamaica. She has a master's degree in psychology. She is the principal owner of Tea House Therapy, and she specializes in relationship building and relationship counseling. So, Ms. Wynter, how are you today?
Thank you. Thanks for having me back. I'm well, thank you.
Great. Today we're going to talk about long distance relationships, but specifically as it relates to relationships between individuals from different cultures, from different countries. So to set the scene and the context, imagine that you have traveled to a different country, you meet someone from a different country, from a different culture, and then you establish a relationship, and then you have to return to your country. And then there is this distance, and not only is there the distance, but then there are the cultural issues that you may have also to overcome in order to make this relationship work. So with that as a backdrop, I'm going to ask Ms. Wynter, what are some of the challenges that you foresee in a context such as that, being a long distance and also with some cultural differences?
Mm-hmm. Okay, I would describe that as a relationship that has maybe two important layers of challenges. When two people are separated by long distances and are in different countries, number one, and then they come from two different cultures, that presents a number of challenges, both of these realities, The difference with being separated to be, first of all, presents challenges in integrating your lives, planning together, planning, your financial future, planning for children, integrating your day-to-day lives can be a challenge as well. Feeling as if we are one unit, creating a life together rather than two separate people with individual and separate lives can create a feeling of disconnection between two people. And then that can translate into a host of other problems if you don't feel that your connection with this person is, first of all, intact, and you don't feel that it's growing and developing either. That can sort of fester into other relationship issues that can undermine the bond that these two people have. With regards to it being to two people being in two different cultures, now that also presents opportunities. I'll say that, but it does create a lot of issues as well. The one that comes to mind is one that relates around identity. So often our culture is so inextricably interwoven with who we are. Who we are as individuals, who we are as a man, as a woman, who we are as a partner, who we are as a parent. So identity differences, profound differences in identity can create a tremendous amount of conflict and tension in relationships, especially as you try to bond and create one culture, a new culture in your own family. A lot of times individuals feel and experience a sense of loss of identity, almost as if I have to give up a part of who I am in order to integrate my life with yours. And then that has a whole, a system of issues that can relate, that can occur because of that. And then there, outshoots of identity differences is differences in lifestyle, differences in religion, even differences in how you do very mundane things, the clothes you wear, how do you share domestic responsibilities even. It can come down to as that, And then, of course, the big ticket one is how do we decide how we're going to parent our children? Number one, what values are we going to share with them? That, that becomes now something to actively negotiate, And then also, which culture are they going to be of a shared culture, or are they going to be more adherents to one culture or the other? Those are some of the pretty layered, that's a sort of multiplicity of challenges on
Right.
top of any typical relationship challenge that two individuals can have if they're separated, number one, and if they come from two different cultures.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. Obviously, it seems to me at least, that it would be very difficult to try to tackle all of those things all at once. So, and I don't know if age has anything to do with this as well. Is there, what's your suggestion? Seems like this would be something that's terribly overwhelming. Assuming you want this relationship to continue, because obviously maybe you found some good things in the relationship, where do you actually start?
Yeah. Well, I think in terms of recognizing what these hurdles are going to be at the beginning is always knowledge is a wonderful place to start from, and awareness is a wonderful place to start from,
Yes.
Being attuned to what are the likely issues that are going to come up in our relationship ahead of time.
Yeah.
Now, age has, I would say that the age of the relationship may have a bearing in that if we have already established a bond at the time of this geographic separation, and we've really gotten to know each other, we understand each other's, intimate emotional landscape and so on, that gives us, so we know we have better knowledge of what we're getting into.
Yes.
That gives you a better chance of being able to negotiate this challenge a bit better.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of where you start, knowing once you're aware of what the hurdles are, it's coming up with mechanisms that can mitigate the challenges that this reality presents.
Right.
This is quite often where a couples therapist can help you, because they can help the couple to have very profound conversations that touch at the core of who each individual is. And when you have that kind of conversation, it can really throw up a lot of emotions. It can throw up a sense of defensiveness if your partner doesn't quite get where you're coming from. You can feel judged, you can judge, and so on. And that can really undermine the conversation. And that's where a couples therapist helps you. It helps you to, the couples therapist gives you sort of guardrails, as it were, for the conversation. Helps you to put up a filter so that you can kind of step back a little bit and have a sense of objectivity. About what is being said and how you say what you're saying and how you receive what is being said. So the conversation can be a bit challenging as you try to bridge this gap of where we both come from, because it's about understanding understanding each other's realities in what can be a bit of a hailstorm of emotions.
And I'm thinking
therapists can help.
I'm thinking though, in that regards too, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I would think that if two people are in two different countries or two different places, and then when they get together, they are so excited to be together, and they, spend all of this time on joyful things and things that bring them happiness and things that bring them together. And so these kinds of conversations, they probably don't want to spend too much time doing, because it's going to take away from those fun, nice things, because they don't have a whole lot of time. And then they're in the distance, and then they go back to wherever they come from. And it seems challenging. It seems, boy, I want to be on this high. I don't want to have these mundane conversations. But then if you don't have the conversations, the longevity of the relationship may be taxed. So how do you challenge that?
I think what happens in most relationships, in many relationships, is that I meet you, we hit it off, there's a chemistry, we want to be together, we want to be in a relationship together, and that gets us out of the blocks. And for many couples who have these additional challenges of cultural differences and of distance, geographic challenges as well, oftentimes they don't confront these issues until it's thrown up in their face.
Which can be problematic.
Right. So they're being reactive, and that's and you know, when couples are reacting to situations, oftentimes the communication is damaging and damaging to the relationship. And then the conversation becomes now one, if you're lucky, the conversation becomes one of rehabilitating the bond that we had.
Yes.
Rehabilitating conversation is an even more challenging one than a sort of preemptive conversation.
Yes. So, I can see.
So it's, you know, in fact, I mean, I've seen studies where rehabilitating relationships after things have gone really bad, and even with a therapist, those conversations are, you know, 1/5 as successful as conversations that are proactive, most in many situations.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So that's why it's so important to be realistic. And the thing about it is, it may seem like a mundane conversation, you know, but it's a conversation that is breeding a tremendous amount of intimacy, because intimacy is about getting to know another person really well.
Yes.
And to that I'm still interested and curious about you. I want to know.
Yes.
know, you know, tell me more about, you know, your do you understand the underpinnings of your religious beliefs? What do you,
Yes.
you know, why does it touch you? Tell me about that. You know, what were you given? What was handed to you by your parents that you accepted and rejected? That's conversations that's relevant now to the culture we're going to create together.
Yes.
And also very relevant to me getting to know you and you getting to know yourself through my eyes.
Yes. Key.
So
Very key. I like that. Yeah. So basically what you're saying is, again, context is you meet somebody, you're gone, you figure out this is, you know, possibly something that's a keeper, something that could work, but then you have to go your separate ways. So you're saying at this point, we have a conversation, say, okay, look, I like you, we've got a lot of good things going, want this to go on. So let's have a preemptive discussion and maybe even bring in a counselor, a therapist of what are some of the challenges and how we're going to go get over these challenges, and what are some of the things that we have to put in place in order for the relationship to survive.
Exactly. And it's being very, very deliberate about it. It's because, you know, what's a wonderful way to think about it? What we're doing is we're investing our time,
Yeah.
and we're investing a tremendous amount of emotional capital into this relationship.
Yes.
And what are the pitfalls that we have to prepare for ahead of
Yeah.
time, you know?
Yeah.
And then of course, and as I said, in the same way you'd get an investment manager to help you.
Right. Yes.
Manager knows what you know, what are the pitfalls and how to prepare. I would say that's where a counselor or a therapist can support you as well, in the same way.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. That's a great take-home message. So we've started that. Again, we're in context here. So we have a relationship. We've invested in therapy recommendations, and we've started that. Let's put it in current day context rather. So COVID hits, and we have borders are closed, we have barriers, we have things like that are preventing us from getting together. So we have to resort to things like Zoom, FaceTime, all those other platforms. What are some of the things that we can do, again, with the backdrop of distance and the cultural differences? But so what can we do to keep the love alive, so to speak, or to keep the emotions alive, knowing that I don't know when we're going to get back together again? You know, the distance is a thing, COVID is a thing. So what's your suggestion?
Yeah, it's one of the important things to recognize is that more than with your typical garden variety relationships over distances are going to be affected through conversations. That's going to be the characteristic of this relationship.
Mm-hmm.
You know, probably not going to be able to create shared experiences together.
even with children, new adventures, integrating with friends and families, those opportunities of shared memories and experiences are probably not going to be available to us. So
Yeah.
our relationship is going to be lived through our conversations with each other. That's just the reality.
Yeah.
Number one.
Yeah.
Number two, it's then to, having recognized that, to be extremely disciplined as possible about creating opportunities, rituals for connecting with each other.
Yeah.
And to them as much as possible, so that you have the opportunity to interface with each other over banal, everyday things that are happening in our life. What I have for lunch today, who upset me at work today, those kind of everyday things.
Yeah.
As more profound changes that I'm experiencing during this separation. But the biggest thing, I think, the most important thing is a ritual for staying in touch with each other, that we kind of protect, that we defend and protect and try our best to prioritize, so that it kind of becomes part of the rhythm of our day-to-day experience. It's almost rhythmic, and it has a cadence that is part of how we go about, we integrate work and play and everything. And so I don't think I can overemphasize how important that is. Rituals of connection are important in any relationship,
right.
But more so in relationships where there's cultural differences and geographical separation.
Excellent. So with that information, I know that, again, we have financial conversations, we have plans to how we're going to bring up our kids, and these kinds of things. If a relationship has gone that far ahead, maybe we're younger, and maybe we're into school, and I have to go to college, and then the other one has to go to college. Maybe it's our first jobs or what have you. So
I will say this.
Go ahead.
Hear this. It does, I came across a really interesting study that showed that couples across distances, there are a significant proportion of them that are able to capitalize on their interaction, their regular interaction. And a couple of things they've noticed that this study was showing. That one, they tend to be more aware and get to know each other, are more aware of each other and get to know each other even better,
Really?
because they have a regular and integrated process of speaking to each other and, and sharing day-to-day experiences with each other. So I found that quite interesting. There was also a tendency there was also a tendency to what's called idealize each other.
Yes, I can imagine. Please explain that. Please explain that.
A cement for the relationship, because we're so far apart, we tend to idealize each other.
Yes.
Correlation between this idealization and, guess what, trust. So even though they were separated, it seems as if there was a direct correlation between the level of idealization of the couples, one of the other.
I can see that.
And the
yes.
that they had in each other as well. So that was an interest. So it was considered to be one upside of long distance relationships, that kind of.
Really? Can I ask a question?
Them going.
So, I mean, well, let me say, would you say that's an upside? Because if you're in a relationship and you're idolizing somebody simply because you don't have that day to day, and you don't have all those, share going to the grocery store and share getting your car fixed and
what can be nuisances that can get to you.
Yeah. And so you don't have that. So you idealize this person, and then you get together, and this person that you idealize may not necessarily, seems to me that may be a little difficult.
Here's the thing. Idealization means that I'm focusing on your good traits. Okay. And the good connection And quite frankly, that's an important ingredient of successful relationships, whether you're separated or not.
Yes.
You know, human beings have this tendency, and it's a survival strategy
Yes.
of always noticing what's going wrong in a situation. Okay.
Okay.
A lot of, you know, cognitive, giving a lot of attention to what's going wrong.
Yeah.
And in fact, I think the Pareto principle, you know, the 80-20 principle applies in this situation where we can, as a protective measure, end up spending 80% of our focusing 80% of our attention on the 20% of our life or our relationship or whatever that's not going right.
Right.
What happens in that case, we end up developing a negative perspective of our partner, which is not grounded in fact. It's grounded on 20% of things that's not going right. Now, in relationships that are across distances, that there's more of a balance in that I'm more attuned to little things that you do and say because of this separation, and I hold on to that. Yeah. So my perspective is a little bit more balanced because I'm paying more attention. The distance is forcing me to pay more attention to what's going right in this relationship. What are your wonderful character traits? I kind of attend to those more so. And that's what idealization is. It's almost like the long distance relationship forces us to be more attuned, to be more attentive. Therefore, that helps us to form and to modify our perspective on this person. And that keeps us going. You know, there are two things that keep couples going in a relationship. And one is, you know, you spoke about it earlier, and I want to give it a title. When you meet and you hit it off and you really want to be together and you feel like this is so right, and you know, all the endorphins that create this sense of go off, right? So that's what we call limerence in a relationship, and that can last from anywhere from, you know, 3 months to 2 years in many relationships. Okay, but that's although it's, you know, how should I say, hormone induced in part. Okay. Still a very valuable, it's not a superficial experience, it's a valuable part of a relationship, because quite often that's the glue, that's almost the El Dorado that keeps couples wanting to fix their relationship, you know,
because of that, what they felt in the beginning. They want to hold on to that.
Exactly. And I feel like I can have it again, and so it's worth me investing in you. So chasing and sometimes preserving, for those couples who are successful, that sense of limerence is one of the things that keeps couples together through the rocky.
I can see, Okay. So go ahead, I'm sorry.
Then added to that, if we can, you know, honor and hold as precious the positive characteristics of each other, you know, and always be able to hearken back to that information. You know, when things are going really badly, if we can hearken back to, well, at the end of the day, you know, this person is really a decent, good person, for instance, or a good father, or really tries hard to live up to their commitment. If you can hearken back to the good qualities of this person, again, that makes the journey worth it. That makes the sacrifice. That makes the waiting for the next time I see you worth it.
Right.
You know? You're right, though. The challenge now comes in preserving that sense of idealization when we're together.
How do you do that?
Because, and again, guess what, Dr. Shaw, this is where knowledge is important. When you know that, you know, that we have a knee-jerk tendency to normalize the qualities of our partner. We normalize them and relegate it to everyday experience. So that means we're no longer idealizing the positives of each other. When you know what the consequences of that can be, you know, hopefully can leverage that into action, where you're hyper vigilant and looking out all the time for opportunities to praise and recognize what your partner is doing. You know, think about it, you know, think about it in terms of a parent-child relationship. Instinctively, we know that the more we can encourage and validate our kids, catch them doing something right, you know, the more we're kind of forming their character, as it were. You know, And it's true with adult relationships too. The more you can catch your partner doing something right,
Yeah.
you know, and say it, praise them. It first of all keeps them doing those things. You know,
Yes.
doing those things, and it also keeps them idealized in your own perspective of your partner. So that's how you keep it alive.
Oh, wow. So I can see, wow, that is excellent. So basically, I mean, this is an active process. So as a part of the relationship, I have to actively, I mean, I can see people get into the, as they say, endorphins and emotions, and they on this roller coaster. But what you're suggesting, I have to actively think on these things in order to work towards preserving this relationship with this individual that I don't see can't see and touch every day. So this is an active exercise that the couple may need to put in place, that we have to work on both ends in order to level the groundwork for the longevity of the relationship. Is that what you're saying?
To fortify your connection. You know?
Yeah.
I often say if you only have mental space to do one thing for your relationship.
Yes.
And frankly, of any relationship, just one thing, I would say the most profound thing you can do for your relationship is be on the active lookout for things that person does well and validate them for it.
Excellent. And that says a lot too for long distance, right? So, even if somebody is relating to you, their experiences that maybe you're not witnessing, but their experiences in wherever it is they are, whatever it is they're doing, the validation of that, again, works towards this idealization, is what you're saying, and helps to fortify that bond going forward.
Exactly. I like to call it, it's almost like you keep, you have a diamond, and the process of validating each other is almost like you're always rubbing off the diamond so that you can appreciate how valuable it is to you.
Right. Right.
By praising the person, the person feels great to begin with.
Right.
The person feels validated, the person feels safe with you, and so on. The more you can notice them and validate them, number one.
Right.
But you yourself feel good too, because you are appreciating this valuable thing you have.
Wow.
That influences now how you're going to interact with this valuable relationship you have with this wonderful person that you have in your life. Now, by the way, I am not suggesting for 1 minute, I always feel it's important to clarify. I'm not suggesting that you ignore when things are not going right, and when your needs are not being met, and when the relationship is running asunder. No.
I want to make a point on that though, because obviously if there's distance, and we're not together physically, then clearly all my needs can't possibly be met. Right? So how do I mean, sometimes it seems if I'm idealizing on something, am I living in the present? Am I living in what is, or am I living in what could be?
Right. So remember that idealizing is holding on to the nuggets of joy that we share.
Yes.
But it's not ignoring the difficulties that we face. It's not. Right?
Okay.
It's being more balanced about what you attend to. So it is noticing the difficulties we have, but noticing the positives that we have as well.
Yes.
So if you and I make a commitment that every 5 days a week, we are gonna spend at least half an hour at 6 o'clock connecting with each other, and for 3 weeks, you live up to that commitment for 1 day. Every 1 day, every week. That's a problem. That commitment you made to me is not being met.
Yes.
Okay? And so idealization is not about ignoring that and calling you on it and holding you accountable for the commitment you made to me.
Yeah.
It is being forthright about, you know, how this is affecting me, our relationship, my connection with you.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so idealization is not mutually exclusive from having other needs met to the extent they
Right.
can be in a
Right.
long relationship.
So it's that balance, maybe. That
Exactly.
balance, you know, the reality of what is and what we need to work through, but bolstered by, you know, focusing on the positives of the individual and the positives of the relationship that we had, that we started with.
Yes.
Is that
And
what you're saying?
that's correct. And I want to emphasize that most often, for most of us, that's not something we do instinctively.
Right. So there comes the active, the working on it, the active. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because as I said, you know, it's a survival strategy to pay more attention to what's not right in your environment, because that's the only way you're going to protect yourself and take care of yourself and, you know, plan appropriately. But when it comes to a relationship and a connection with somebody else, it's very important to be sure that you break that habit, that one-sided habit of
And from a cultural difference now, you know, there's some cultures who they talk a lot. Okay, American culture, Western culture tend to talk a lot. And there are other cultures, maybe Asian cultures, other cultures rather, that may not necessarily talk so much, may not necessarily verbalize their feelings or emotions and you know, what we want to say. Sometimes there may be in some cultures, you know, I'm gonna tell you everything. And some other cultures, it's more of an intuitive or more of a read between the lines kind of a culture. So that may add a little difficulty there to that that communication aspect of things. So what's your take on that?
And in those situations, that's going to make the relationship considerably more difficult.
Yeah.
Considerably more difficult. And that's where a therapist is going to help the more reticent individual in the relationship, pull them out, you know, because, you know, a lot of times when we're not open, you know, in those cultures that teach us to subjugate our emotional side, just get on with life, ignore it, compartmentalize the emotional domain of our experience, quite often we can lose touch with that very important part of ourselves. We can't even recognize, we can't even identify, we don't have language anymore to share, you know, and that's where a therapist can help you to reconnect with that part of yourself, because it is important. It is important to help you realize what's important to you.
Yes.
You want in the future. What are you most loyal to in your own culture, in your own religion? You know, it helps you to recognize and confront that, because if you don't, you may very well find yourself having given it up and not even realize that it happened. You know, as you integrate with somebody else's life, you've given up an important part of your culture, let's say, you know, in day-to-day practice, you know, and you don't even realize it.
And you can probably become more resentful then. That can lead to resentment later on.
Exactly. So and that's again, we're talking about rehabilitation.
Right. Yes.
Because
so back to what you were saying about you know, that active
sharing.
That
active sharing about who you are and, you know, and what's important to you. And in terms of your culture, your personality, your values, that sort of a thing. You know, cultures that are more closed about that part of their life will have a difficulty connecting. Well, you know, even if there's no distance, but, you know, more so if there's a geographical disparity.
Wow. Okay. I like that. I like that. So I mean, I mean, you laid out recommendations from before you even get to the problems. Okay, what we need to do for the health of the relationship and what we need to put in place to maintain the health of the relationship individually and also as a couple. And so this is very helpful for our audience, particularly as we will be starting to travel a little bit more here in the near future. So some relationships and some people actually thrive with distance. Okay, because there are some people who they have to have you under their arm every day, but then there's some people who want you at an arm's length.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So say, for example, in the context that we're having this discussion now, we have a relationship where we've done well, we've survived a year or so more distance because of the circumstances, but now we can get together again. But then it becomes so awkward.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing. I think there are two precursors to what determines how much distance I can tolerate.
Yes.
Well, people are at different stages of their life. So college kids who are pursuing, their dreams and self-actualizing, quite often they can tolerate more distance at that stage of their life,
Yes.
than two people who are now ready to settle down, have a family, start planning together and so on, So I think, life's stage is relevant in terms of, however, we can become, and a more individualistic feature is also relevant. And that's the feature of attachment styles,
Okay.
And attachment styles is about, how do I handle intimacy?
Yes.
It's number one, am I comfortable with intimacy? And then by that I mean closeness and vulnerability. And also, how do I handle intimacy when I'm when a stressor is presented to the relationship? Now, there are a lot of people who have a style that's called a secure attachment style. And what that means is that I'm comfortable with intimacy. I don't feel as if I'm going to become overwhelmed or lose myself if I develop a closeness with somebody else. And by closeness, that has different dimensions as well. Closeness in terms of time spent together, closeness in terms of opening myself and my vulnerabilities and my emotional world and my thoughts and my inadequacies to this person. That's closeness as well. Closeness in terms of depending on this person. That's closeness as well. Can I depend on this person to be there for me? Can I depend on this person to be truthful to me? Can I depend on this person not to betray me? That's closeness as well. And there's some people who, most of us, thank goodness, have developed what's a secure attachment style, where I feel comfortable being close in all those domains I just described to another person.
Yes.
And then there's insecure attachment styles, which many of us have as well, where intimacy is threatening to me. I equate intimacy, for example, with hurt or betrayal, and or my needs not being met. The closer somebody gets to me, is the more I'll be taken for granted. So my needs are not going to be met, and I'm going to feel not important. My sense of worth is going to be threatened. I'm going to feel a lot of shame if my needs are not recognized and prioritized by somebody who is close to me. Right. That's insecure attachment style. And when that happens, I'm going to kind of like have these boundaries, I'm going to be
these boundaries, these walls.
Exactly, as much as possible. And those walls are going to become even more concrete to elaborate on the metaphor. Those walls are going to become even more concrete when there's tension between us. So as soon as something's not going right, woo, up goes the wall. You're not going to get through this wall to hurt me. I'm going to become self-sufficient. I can take care of myself. And so intimacy goes out the door and the connection suffers. So the attachment style, as they call it, is relevant to how much intimacy, closeness I can tolerate, that I'm comfortable with, and that I can offer to somebody else.
So how do we share that? I mean, do we say, okay, my intimacy style is this, and what's your intimacy style? I mean, how do you share that?
most often we don't know what our intimacy style is.
Yeah,
We
I
just
would think.
right? We handle situations the way we handle them. And
Yeah,
I may say that's where a therapist comes in again. You know, we have different scales and instruments to help test and give you a sense of
yeah,
what your attachment style is. Now, attachment style is something that we learn. It's a way to adapt and keep ourselves safe. So, and if you have an insecure attachment style, that's going to be to the detriment of your relationship. You
mhm,
know, you're not going to be able to weather the storm very well, weather
right,
the difficult times in your relationship very well. And so that's where a therapist can help you, because it's not that, you know, having an insecure attachment style is not a life sentence. You
mhm,
can modify it. You know, you can, and you can reap the rewards of intimacy. You can learn a new way of adapting, a healthy way of adapting within the confines of a healthy relationship.
So that
And
seems to me then that's an opportunity for personal growth.
a
So,
relationship is one of the most fertile grounds for personal growth, Dr. Shaw.
mhm,
A relationship is one of the most fertile grounds for, because it tells you so much about yourself. It throws up inadequacies, it throws up fears, it throws up all sorts of things, because you're now in the space with this other person who is interdependent with you, who responds to you and sees you from a different perspective. So quite often, yes, a
mhm.
relationship is where you can learn so much more about yourself and create the most opportunity for personal growth, because you want to grow because this person is important enough to you.
Right,
Put in the work to grow as
yeah.
an individual for the better.
But then I have to be receptive to appreciate the fact that I have personal growth to make in order for this relationship to work.
Absolutely.
Because now I'm also challenged by distance, I'm challenged by culture. So, I have to have an understanding of who and what I am and what I represent in order to try to bridge some of these barriers that I don't have any control over.
But the thing about it is, though, is that quite often it's the relationship that shows you who you are.
Yes.
Quite often, I often say that in relationships, and this is empirically demonstrated, in
Yes.
relationships, it's almost as if somebody steps into your personal space and holds up a mirror for
Yes.
you to look at yourself. you
Yes.
know
Love
uh,
that analogy. Yes. Love that analogy.
it's like we hold up a mirror for each other.
Right.
And some of the things we just take for granted, we never have to confront, because there's
Right.
nobody pointing it out to us, or
Yes.
who's different.
Yes.
Sometimes it's only a contrast with something else that defines the contours of who you are, almost.
Yes. 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 I can see that.
So with that mirror, when you look at yourself, I always say, you look at yourself and you see something, and then what?
Right. Okay. So then what? Yeah.
Then what?
Then comes the fixing.
Yeah, comes the decision.
Yes.
I've heard so many people say, look, I am just too old to change. Nothing's going to change me, sort of a thing. Fine, okay.
Yeah, I heard that. Mm-hmm.
That's your decision, But there's hardly any growth without there is no growth I can think of without some discomfort.
Yeah.
It's on the other side of discomfort, going through discomfort, that you can realize growth and often fulfillment. Nothing worth anything comes without some discomfort and
yeah, absolutely. So I mean, so we've moved on through the relationship building here from long distance. So now we're at the the personal, reflecting, understanding the relationship, understanding you as an individual within a relationship, and then now you've given us some tools as to what to do with the information that we have then found out.
Absolutely. And if you permit me to close the circle,
Yes.
this same holding up of a mirror, you realize, will be even more profound as it relates to cultural and religious differences.
Okay.
Because so much of our culture, we just sort of inherit and imbibe.
Right.
And don't necessarily question.
Correct. Yeah.
And then somebody else comes along and says, that doesn't make any sense to me. Could you explain that again?
How do you do that?
You have to dig deep and say, hold on a second. do I believe this, or have I just accepted this? And, and can I really explain my culture and my way of doing things?
Yes.
So that's the opportunity, the potential opportunity presented to you from somebody outside your culture, close to them. And so therefore it also gives you the opportunity to either deepen your commitment and loyalty to your own culture, and I'm using culture synonymous with religion.
Right, understood. Yeah, very loosely.
But loosely, it gives you the opportunity to either deepen your commitment and loyalty to your own culture, or makes you ask some tough questions and say, hold on a second, do I want to reform this?
Yes.
Do I want to make something more relevant to my individual situation and beliefs?
Right. And I can see then, again, trying to close the loop, so I can see then that with that additional knowledge and understanding and self-actualization and appreciation, then I can see then that you can then say, okay, because sometimes when you're in a relationship, it's like, okay, this is what we do, and this is what you do, and never the two shall meet. Okay, this is the church we go to, and that's the church you go to, or this is our religion, or this is our belief, and this is our thing, and we don't, this is just my way, and that's just your way, and we'll agree to disagree. And certainly there are certain circumstances like that, but for the most part, what I'm hearing you say then is, now that I've come to this realization, and now that I've appreciated just by looking in the mirror that you have put up in front of me, I know I'm seeing myself a little differently, okay, maybe through your eyes, or just seeing myself a little differently. Now I can decide, okay, you know what? Maybe we can combine. Maybe I don't have to be such a stickler for my way. Maybe I don't have to be so set in my ways. Maybe now that I appreciate and understand from a cultural integration, it seems to me at least that would give us a step up to approaching melding of the ways and melding of the cultures a little bit better.
You are correct. In some senses, yes. Two people coming together and creating a life together is about creating a combined and shared culture for this new unit that they have called a family. The two of them, or an extended family. We're coming from two different cultures, and we are creating a new culture for what we're defining as this new unit we're creating. Now, within that new culture can be that mom does this and dad does this, and it's different.
Yes.
So our culture doesn't have to mean that we share the same ideas or we do the same things necessarily. Our culture can mean that, no, on these two things we stand apart. On these two things we share opinions and activities and rituals and roles, but on these things we don't agree and we don't share it, so we do these two things differently. But it's an agreement on that, agreement. And living in that way that makes both people as comfortable as possible is still the creation of a new culture.
Right. And I can see then, coming right back to the beginning, that preemptive discussions, those preemptive discussions, again, the ground, the separation gives you fertile ground, because you don't have that, we're going to the movies today, we're going to this today. So we're not doing much today together. So that difference, we're talking. So that difference, that distance can give you that opportunity to really investigate and really delve down into the depths of these kinds of discussions. So you know what, very strangely, it just appeared to me, maybe the relationship might come out healthier than it would if we were two together in the same space all the time. Because now we're forced to communicate and we're forced to delve into these potential differences.
But you know what, Dr. Shaw, yes and no. The truth is, couples that are together and not separated by distance should be doing all these things as well.
They should be.
Unfortunately, they don't.
They take it for granted, maybe.
And they suffer.
Yes.
Exactly. But couples that are apart can fall into the same trap. They can underestimate how important it is to have those preemptive conversation and to have those staying in touch rituals of connection as well.
Yes. Got it.
It can happen in both situations.
Yes.
And again, it's being aware of that. It's
Yeah.
being aware of, look, a relationship is an investment, and
Yeah.
we have to be deliberate about preserving it. We have a notion that a relationship is like spontaneous combustion almost.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and everything will take care of itself.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, there are one or two couples where that happens to happen, but it's
Yeah.
not likely. You know,
Got it.
so yes, you know, these kinds of conversations create opportunities for couples who are separate to bond and to create shared meaning together. But it's just as true for couples who live together.
Yeah.
And in fact, it's an important milestone for couples to get past, for their relationships to mature.
Yes. You can see that. All right. I mean, we've actually gone full circle, and we've come right back around.
Dr. Shaw, I think it would be remiss of me for us to end this conversation without at least mentioning the challenge that is presented by distance, specifically distance, the challenge presented to physical intimacy. That's a huge one too, and that's a difficult conversation for couples to have. You know, how are we going to handle that?
Yes.
You know, how are we going to handle this? You know, and of course there are a lot of creative ideas that they can come up with, and again, that's where a couples therapist can help you. But again, it's an adventure. It's learning to be creative. It's learning to make sacrifices, because you're now on an endeavor that is important to both of you.
Yes, that's a very important part as well, and I appreciate you for bringing that into the loop. Well, this is great. Once again, this is Miss Sonia Wynter, who has brought a very revealing and very interesting conversation and helped us along with these kinds of very challenging experiences within relationships, given the global movement that occurs under normal circumstances with that movement. So, I mean, this has been very, this is been a great discussion. And I think this will help a lot of our audience who are traveling and find themselves in these sort of situations where they are in a relationship, but they have to separate, and they're trying to keep it and maintain the relationship. And that excitement, as you mentioned, that you had in the beginning. What was that term again? Began with L?
Oh, limerence.
Limerence, yes. So, you know, and I think this is definitely, I think, going to help many of our audience, individuals in our audience, as it relates to these kinds of challenges for maintaining a relationship. So I do want to thank Ms. Wynter again for appearing on our show. We love to have her on our show, and you're going to see information on Ms. Wynter, how to contact her, and her Tea House Therapy. So that's already been shown on the screen. And please remember to like our channel and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And so in closing, Ms. Wynter, thank you for being on our show again.
Thank you. It's always my pleasure. Thank you, Dr. Shaw.
And this is Dr. Shaw with Shaw Medical Travel Consultants. And so thanks to all.